Mwonzora, a pleasure to have you on the program this afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I want to start first by quoting your spokesperson, Lloyd Damba, who is quoted as saying that Nelson Chamisa should be arrested on contempt of court charges. Let's first get a background on this story first and tell us what exactly is at the heart of this call that you are making, that he defied court orders to step down as MDC Alliance president.
Well, on that, we are not pushing for anyone's arrest, but I think what Lloyd was talking about there is that in terms of the alliance agreement that gave birth to the MDC Alliance as a coalition, the person who is the leader of the MDC-T automatically becomes the leader of the MDC Alliance. And that is what the court order basically says. And that disregarding this is contempt of court. But I'm not too keen to get anybody arrested. This is a political issue, and it will be dealt with politically. But of course, yes, there is defiance of a court order there by my brother Chamisa. But this is something that will be dealt with politically.
Now, as Mr. Damba made these allegations, the MDC Alliance soon responded through the deputy party spokesperson, that's Clifford Hlachayo, who's dismissing Damba's threats, also describing them as a desperate measure by the MDC-T to score its own political goals. What is your response to this assertion?
Well, it's not desperate. If somebody, a lawyer for that matter, is in contempt of court, they are in contempt of court. And in other jurisdictions, that's a serious thing. We are not desperate at all. We are a party that is on the rise. We are having more successes. We are controlling parliament now. We are controlling local government. We are controlling the headquarters and so on. So we have succeeded against the other group. But we are for the politics of development. We are for the politics to change. We want to change Zimbabwe's politics. We want to get rid of the politics of hate, violence, rancor, acrimony, and replace it with the politics of rational disputation and tolerance. But definitely, we are not desperate. We are not scoring an own goal for that matter. If somebody is in contempt of court, they are in contempt of court. And there are documents, legal documents to prove that.
You say you're not desperate, but there's also the view shared by most legal experts in that country, one of them being Advocate Tawanda Mapuranga, who says yourself as well as your allies are failing to correctly interpret the High Court ruling, which nullified Chamisa's presidency in the MDC party. Let us get your reaction on this issue.
Well, I am a lawyer, and I've been a lawyer for more than 30 years. And for 18 years, I was a law lecturer. I am one of the three co-chairpersons who oversaw the writing of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, and I do understand High Court judgments. There are two judgments here. There is the judgment earlier by the High Court, which Mr. Chamisa appealed against. It is a very clear judgment, and it talks of the MDC, which is the party that was left by President Morgan Tsvangirai, the deceased, and is a party that also went to elections. We went to election as the MDC Alliance, which was a conglomeration of 7 political parties, including the MDC-T. Now, in terms of the alliance agreement, the MDC-T was the main partner of the agreement, and its president automatically assumed the presidency or the leadership of the alliance. It is there in black and white. There is nothing to misinterpret there.
I want us to shift gears now and speak on another developing story. The Supreme Court ordered the immediate release of from Chiguruba Maximum Security Prison of 2 political prisoners. That's Las Tamai Mahengwama as well as Tungamai Madzoreke. Now, they've been detained since 2016 after they were convicted and sentenced to serve a 20-year jail term each for allegedly murdering a Zimbabwe Republic police officer. What has been your initial reaction to their release?
We are very, very elated indeed. We are very, very happy that they have been released. We are happy that justice has been done at last. We are on record of saying that this conviction was wrong, it was political, and it was not supported by evidence. In fact, there is evidence that one of them, I think it was last Mahengama, was actually attending a church service at the material time. And this church service was actually televised. The evidence was produced in court by the judge, completely ignored it. This case was so confused to the extent that the police officer, the deceased police officer, was actually dishonorably discharged by the police force after his death posthumously, citing that incident that he had been wrong. But the evidence against the three, they were originally three people sentenced to 20 years. Yvonne Msarurwa, who is now a member of parliament, incidentally was released as a result of presidential amnesty, and the two. And the evidence against these three people was very, very shaky. It was wrong to convict them. It was political. And we are happy that the Supreme Court has released them. But we are not happy that it has taken all this time. It means that for 10 years now, these people were wrongly detained. They were wrongly in prison. And this is a typical case that they must sue for damages. And we will support that.
So let's speak about this recourse that they may be seeking. What options do they have, and can they actually seek even compensation from Zimbabwe's government?
Yes, they can. At law, they were wrongly convicted, they were wrongly arrested, they were unlawfully detained, and so on. And they can have remedy at law. That is, they can make an application for damages against the state, mostly against the police. I'm not so very sure whether they will have a recourse against the courts because our system doesn't allow punishing judges for making wrongful decisions. But they have a right to compensation at law, and they can get that compensation.
I also want us to move to another matter before we let you go. The Zimbabwean government this week insisted that there was no constitutional crisis in the country as human rights lawyers cranked up the heat on the Judicial Service Commission, subpoenaing documents on the annulled 5-year extension of Luke Malaba's tenure as the Chief Justice. What is your position as the MDC-T on this matter?
Well, I am actually one of the first people to argue in the Senate that the section that had been put in the amendment would be challenged in court, and it could be challenged successfully. And the Minister of Justice ignored that advice while we were still at debating stage. I was not surprised when the High Court made the judgment that it made. I believe that the judgment was correct. But the fact of the matter is that the judgment has been appealed against. And our law simply says that if you appeal against the judgment, that appeal suspends the judgment appealed against. I have seen that there are Supreme Court judges who have been sworn in. The problem with that case was that the applicants cited all the judges of the Supreme Court and all the judges of the Constitutional Court. What this technically means is that the appeal will lie in the registry and may not find a judge to hear it because all the judges are conflicted. It's a matter that can be dealt with very, very simply. It is a very simple matter. And I think what the lawyers must insist on is for the matter to be set down and to be heard. But they were also, with all due respect to them, they were also in the wrong because they cited all the judges, including the judges that they were not targeting. They were targeting the Chief Justice, Justice Malaba, whose term of office had been extended, and after he reached the age of 70, they should have confined their application to him. But they then cited all the Constitutional Court judges and the Supreme Court judges, which in my respectful view was a mistake. Now we have a problem that there may be long periods before this appeal is heard. In the meantime, the decision that was appealed against, according to our law, remains suspended.
Before I let you go, I also want to get an assessment of just what have you analyzed on the country's rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. Of course, we had seen in recent days there had been people protesting on this apparent slow pace of the rollout of vaccines in that country. What has been your assessment?
I think with respect, the government of Zimbabwe has done well regarding COVID. And here we are on record of saying that the fight against the COVID pandemic must be completely depoliticized. And we were playing our part in making sure that the vaccine was rolled out. So far, I think Zimbabwe has contained this pandemic relatively well. And we are encouraging people to get vaccinated. We are saddened that there were certain political leaders who were discouraging people from getting vaccinated. It is an irresponsible thing to do. This disease is real, it is dangerous, and it is there, and it has to be fought. So we are happy that those who want to be vaccinated can be vaccinated, and that at last people are heeding the call for vaccination. I think we have done relatively well.
But it would seem that there's also the criticism that can't be ignored, that the country's healthcare system is generally crippled. I mean, we've also seen healthcare workers also protesting over poor salaries. What would you say, or how would you describe the country's current state of their healthcare system?
The healthcare system is very, very bad indeed. I do agree with those people who say that. There is not enough medicine in the hospitals generally. The facilities are poor. The hospitals themselves are run down and so on. That is why in the context of COVID, it is important for the government to concentrate on prevention. Rather than cure, because when a person is infected, it's more difficult because at one time the hospitals did not have the ventilators and so on. So the equipment is not there. And that's why we support the strategy of making sure that the disease is prevented. That's why we advocated, we were the first political party to advocate for vaccination. And at one time, we were even accused of being too radical when we insisted on compulsory vaccination. Of course, that has constitutional implications, but prevention is better than cure. The health system is bad, and therefore our people must prevent infection.
That was Douglas Mwonzora. He's the MDC-T President on the recent political developments in Zimbabwe.